That brings us to item 14G. Christine Pereira, a coastal program analyst in our South Coast District office, will be presenting this. I would just note for the commission, we do not have any known opponents on this project, but we are going to give a short presentation on this, as it does present an item of interest involving the hotel units and mitigation for low-cost overnight accommodation. So if we could bring up the PowerPoint for this, please.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. Item 14G is a coastal development permit application to construct a new 2,742 square foot, 3-story, 5-unit hotel building and convert an existing 1,841 square foot single-family residence to a hotel room for a total of a 2-structure hotel with 6 high-cost units at 70 10th Street in Hermosa Beach. The applicant is B&J Capital Group Investments. Next slide, please. The site is currently developed with a historic 2-story single-family residence that was built in 1910. The lot is 4,025 square feet and is located approximately 400 feet from the inland extent of the beach. The site is directly adjacent to residential uses along its western and southern borders and commercial uses to the north and east of the project location. The site is zoned C2 restricted commercial, and the City of Hermosa Beach's certified land use plan designation is general commercial. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the conversion of the existing single-family residence would result in a beach bungalow hotel unit that is 1,841 square feet. Next slide, please. This beach bungalow unit would have 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, a dining room, a full kitchen, and a laundry room with a washer and dryer. The applicant has worked with a historical consultant to design a 5-unit structure behind the existing historic single-family residence that the applicant contends will complement the existing historic or single-family residence's original architecture. Each of the 5 units in the new building would be approximately 550 square feet, inclusive of a bedroom and a bathroom. Additionally, the applicant is proposing 4 on-site parking spaces and to pay in lieu parking fees to the City of Hermosa Beach for 2 parking spaces for a total of $57,800 to help fund an existing program to construct new parking facilities within the city. The applicant is also proposing to install a bike rack that can accommodate at least 8 bicycles and to provide a minimum of 4 shared bicycles to be provided on site for hotel guests.
Up a little bit.
In addition, the applicant is proposing to give hotel guests a 10% discount if they stay at the property without a vehicle. The applicant will provide an electric vehicle that can be used by hotel guests, and there will be an electric vehicle charging station provided on site. Next slide, please. Section 30213 requires permitted development to protect, encourage, and where feasible, provide lower cost visitor and recreational facilities. In past projects, the Commission has found that one way to protect lower cost accommodations as required by Section 30213 is to ensure that at least 25% of the number of new proposed high cost rooms are lower cost. In other words, 25% of the proposed high cost rooms must be reserved at the identified low cost rate. Although the provision of on-site lower cost accommodations is superior, if on-site provision is found to be infeasible, the Commission has alternatively required in lieu mitigation payments for the construction of an equivalent number of lower cost rooms off-site. In this case, the applicant provided an economic feasibility analysis, which found that, in part given the small size of the proposed hotel, the provision of a low-cost room on site would likely result in negative operating income. However, it is difficult to forecast the economic feasibility of the proposed project given the current economic downturn without confirmed nightly room rates from the applicant. Thus, provision of low-cost hotel units on site would potentially not be feasible from an economic perspective. Thus, staff believes that in this case, the requirement of an in lieu fee to provide for the equivalent low-cost overnight accommodations is appropriate. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing 6 high-cost rooms on site. Thus, special condition 1 requires the applicant to pay an in lieu mitigation fee for 25% of the high-cost rooms multiplied by $100,000 per room for a total of $150,000, consistent with a methodology used by the Commission in past permit actions for similar projects. The in lieu mitigation fee is required to be paid prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the hotel or within 3 years of Coastal Commission approval, whichever is sooner, and ensures that the funds will be directed toward the State Coastal Conservancy to support expanding availability of lower cost overnight visitor accommodations in the coastal zone. There's an addendum posted for this item, which further clarifies the lower cost accommodation special condition. We also, sorry. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the commission approve the project subject to the special conditions beginning on page 6 of the staff report. The motion and resolution to accomplish this recommendation can be found on page 5 of the staff report. This concludes the presentation and staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any ex parte with respect to this item? I don't see any. Who do we have on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chair, we have Dean Thomas, the applicant, and 2 representatives.
All right, let's bring them in.
All right, Mr. Thomas, you should be in as a panelist.
Hello.
Hey, Mr. Thomas, welcome. How many will be speaking for the applicant today in addition to yourself?
Sir, I believe it's been a long day, just me if necessary. If the consultants have to come in, they'll come in and talk and answer some questions if I can't.
Perfect. How much time do you need?
I'm thinking under 5 minutes, sir.
All right, we'll set you at 5 minutes. Welcome, please proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Dean Thomas. I'm an applicant along with my partners, Rebecca Jarus and Jorge Lara. We appreciate your time today. A little bit of my history is I was born in Inglewood, California, and I attended the Inglewood school districts and Redondo Beach school districts. And I obtained my real estate license when I was a senior in high school and have been involved with a lot of residential and commercial development projects in the beach cities. And I've also surfed at that Hermosa Pier since I was 7 or 8 years old. So I've completed 2 historic projects in the past. And when we started this project, we were not anticipating doing some type of a historic project. But when we did the historical evaluation, it was determined in the evaluation by Page and Turnbull that this was not a historical property, but could be considered a historical resource. And in my almost 4 decades or more of real estate, I've never seen that type of verbiage in a report that said could be considered a historical resource. So I met with Hermosa Beach community developers and the planning director, and CEQA got involved because of the verbiage could be considered a historical resource. So in approximately June of 2016, I had a meeting with CEQA, Turnbull and Page, which were historical consultants, planning directors, assistant planning directors, and community staff in Hermosa Beach to talk about why it was considered or could be considered a historical resource. And what they said is there was 5 beach bungalows in a row, and they were within a block from the beach, original beach bungalows, and that may never happen again. And in that, they said if we wanted to continue with our commercial property that we had planned on developing, they asked us in that meeting if we would consider developing something or coming up with an idea that kept the beach bungalow home. Now, there's some interesting history in Hermosa Beach. Excuse me one second. Hermosa Beach was incorporated in 1907. This home was built, one of the original homes, in 1910 on this corner of 10th Street and Hermosa Avenue. At that time, all of the properties from Hermosa Avenue to the beach were zoned residential. In the 1980s, and I got my license in 1979, so I lived through some of this stuff in the 80s, Hermosa Beach created a new downtown corridor program. And that changed the zoning of this property to commercial, but the other 4 properties that could be considered part of the resource were still residential. So we had a residential property that was on a commercial lot that was now non-conforming because of the rezoning. So my partners and I asked them, and I really congratulate my partners for working on this with the community for the last 5 years. I said, guys, let's try to keep that beach bungalow. And let's look at the plan that mitigates parking the most, which was the boutique inn plan, because if we did commercial, we'd need like 8 or 10 parking and loose spots. And because the 6-unit project only needed 1 parking and loose spot, that would necessitate us requesting the lowest amount of deed in lieu to make this work of parking. So what we did was, while we met with CEQA, we had this meeting, and everybody, when I brought up the idea of keeping the beach bungalow, working with Turnbull and Page to create 5 units behind it that match the architecture, so everything blends. Everybody walked away from that meeting thinking that that was quite a good idea, and they were hoping that our partners would work towards that. So 4.5 years later, we have the pleasure of sitting in front of the Coastal Commission. And I want you to know that I've never been in a Coastal Commission meeting. I've been in several city council meetings and planning commissions. I've been in this meeting since 9 o'clock today. And I've watched every bit of it. And I have a whole newfound respect for what you folks do. And I'm really proud of what you do. And I don't know if I had that opinion over the last 10 years of my career, but I learned a lot today, and I really appreciated what I learned. So we feel like we've developed a project that we did have a community outreach. We went through a couple of planning commission meetings, and then we ultimately ended up at city council. And in these community outreach meetings, the residents all had one thing in common. They would love to see that bungalow stay. So our partners and I said, you know, that bungalow, if I may have 1 more minute and I'll finish. My partners and I decided, is that okay, sir?
That's fine. Please proceed.
Thank you. My partners and I decided, let's keep that bungalow because we will be proud of it for the next century. That city, that community will have that. And this is a centerpiece in Hermosa Beach. So if we end up getting approval from the Coastal Commission, we're going to create something that's very unique. People throughout the community and beyond will have a chance to stay for the next century in an original beach bungalow house. And I would like to bring up just one thing about affordability. At the prices we're projecting our units, the beach bungalow house is 1,850 square feet. It can accommodate 2 and 3 families. And my family, I lived in apartments my entire life. I just got into real estate young, and I happen to have my own home now. But this beach home, if you look at the cost per square foot per day, is 32 cents a foot. It's the cheapest rental in the entire city of Hermosa Beach. There's open studies. You can see how much all the units rent for. So for families to be able to come and stay in this home, we're visualizing it's probably going to rent for around $700 a night, maybe $750 a night. And that equals 32 cents a foot. One of the beach house down the street is 90 cents a foot for their units. So we really worked hard over the last 4.5 years to try to implement what the Coastal Commission's vision is. And we're going to ask for an approval of our project today. And I will stop talking now and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We will come back to that. Just confirming, staff, there are no other speakers on this item.
That is correct. There are no more speakers.
All right. Any additional comments from staff?
No comments.
All right. We'll bring it to the commission for action or deliberation. Commissioner Rice.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just have 2 questions, one for staff. With regards to the in lieu fee, how successful, what's sort of the history of success with in lieu fees such as this towards actually creating or helping to support the expansion of low-cost housing, whether that in whatever form?
Maybe I can start that. In the past, Commissioner Rice, to be honest, it hasn't been good. The in lieu fees the in lieu fee we required on these sorts of developments in the past just were not adequate, did not cover the cost of a replacement. a low-cost overnight accommodation. So a few years ago, we upped that fee to $100,000 based on numbers we received from an economist who did some research for us on this matter. And that doesn't include land costs. So with our efforts around, in combination with state parks and the Coastal Conservancy, we believe that fee will help us to really push forward low-cost overnight accommodations. And with all the efforts around low-cost overnight accommodation required by the legislature, we are pushing forward on those. And we have a number of projects in the works right now. So the future looks bright.
Okay. So it's landing in, as it were, a sort of a pool that then can be accessed to help with whether it's a state park project or something like that. But so you have optimism about it, the fee going to good use.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And I think my follow-up or parallel question would have been, do we ever consider, did staff consider having at least one of the units be a dedicated low-cost unit?
Yes, and I'll answer that question. Yes, we did, and this was the in lieu fee was not our starting point, not at all. We had a long and lengthy round of discussions with the applicant on exactly that issue, and we requested that it would have been 1.5 units. That's 25% of the 6 rooms. We did request that they provide at least 1 unit on site as a low-cost overnight accommodation. Now, the applicant, and I'm sure they can provide additional information, but they did provide a economic feasibility analysis, which we looked at, and their analysis showed that they did not believe it was economically feasible to provide low cost. Now, they countered with a proposal that there could be a moderate cost unit on site, but there were provisions. They were not willing to pay the entire in lieu fee, and quite honestly, the moderate cost would not be a form of mitigation. That would simply be a room that wouldn't require mitigation, in our view. So at the end, given the fact that this is a very small project, we believe that in lieu fee is the right way to go in this case. We are continuing. I want to emphasize, though, that when these projects come in, and particularly on the larger projects, our philosophy is that we are working with the applicants to provide low-cost overnight accommodations on site, and not simply rely on these in lieu fees. Now, in this case, we believe that the in lieu fee is the only feasible alternative. It would have been very difficult to have provided, just because there's the large bungalow. That's
Mr. Hudson, I think I appreciate the response, and I just wanted to understand it better. I actually think this is a really creative proposal and solution for this lot, but I just want to make sure that we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's in terms of exploring options for that low cost option. So thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you, Chair Padilla. I personally, I mean, I'm so, in one sense, very grateful for the preservation of the bungalow. I don't know if anyone's seen photos of it. It's really an amazing building and a really incredible structure. I personally am not at all excited about its conversion out of residential use. And I don't see why it's required to convert out of residential use in order to build the rest of the project. And I would be okay with not doing the low cost provision with relationship to if we were able to keep the residential element of this. I guess I don't really, it seems to me that you could build what you could build. I don't understand the conversion out of the residential. It just doesn't seem worth it to me. It's residential and there's no reason to convert it. And you'd still be able to build what's there. I mean, build the units, so.
Commissioner, may I address that question, please? Is that okay?
Go right ahead.
Only if the chair says it's okay.
Absolutely, you can. Mr. Thomas, please feel free.
Sir, the property was rezoned to commercial. It's no longer a residential zone lot. My team talked with the city to great lengths to just be able to put a single family home there, but it's on a commercial lot. So the only way we were able to preserve that property is to convert that to a short-term hotel use to make it, what would I say, to make it to make it conforming with the code. Commercial use allows for a short-term hotel type of use. So we said, in order to preserve the property, we have that for short-term use, which is still residential short-term use with the hotel behind it. But we can't keep a house there or it's non-conforming. The city won't allow it. If that answers your question, sir.
I'd like staff to address that, please.
Yes. So of course the proposal that came to us was for conversion of that to hotel use. And the way we evaluated that was that under the Coastal Act, recreational uses are a higher priority than residential. Now, in terms of the mitigation, I would just note that the mitigation for the low-cost overnight accommodations, that's for the high-cost units, for the lost opportunity of low cost. So provision of residential on site, for us, we were looking at that as sort of an apples and oranges situation. Of course, it would be excellent to be able to preserve residential density, and we support that. But we do not believe that preservation of residential density would be a mitigation measure for high-cost units and loss of low-cost overnight accommodations or the opportunity for that.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for staff? Any direction from the commission? Commissioner, Vice Chair Brownsie?
Yes, I thought that was an important discussion, and Commissioner Wilson, thanks for asking that question. And I think that staff, I think, articulated the limitations in terms of this particular parcel. So with that, unless there are other questions or comments, I'm going to make the motion.
Feel free, Vice Chair.
Okay. I move that we approve application number 5-20-0181 as conditioned by the staff report. And I'm requesting an aye vote.
And I'll second.
All right, moved by Brownsie Rice. Any further discussion or deliberation? All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Amanzada. Commissioner Bochco.
Yes. Sorry, I'm a yes.
Amanzada, yes. Bochco, yes. Commissioner Brownsie.
Aye.
Brownsie, yes. Commissioner Luce.
Yes.
Luce, yes. Commissioner Groom.
Yes.
Groom, yes. Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. Commissioner Howell. Oops, sorry. Commissioner Rice.
Yes.
Rice, yes. Commissioner Turnbull Sanders.
Yes.
Turnbull Sanders, yes. Commissioner Uranga.
Aye.
Uranga, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
Nay.
Wilson. Yes.
No.
Wilson, no. Chair Padilla.
Aye.
Padilla, yes. The vote is 10 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Those findings are adopted. That permit application is approved. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too.